Hello and welcome to my course. In today's class, we will move on to the next unit, the 5 marks unit 8, that is foreign sector, role of international trade on Indian economy. So if you remember, I have given all the important questions, 10 marks and 5 marks. So I finished with the important 5 marks with the unit 7 tertiary sector, and in unit 8 foreign sector also. There are no 10 marks being asked in the board exam, only the 5 marks question, 5 marks and maybe 2 marks. Okay, so the first important 5 marks under the foreign sector unit 8 is the role of international trade on Indian economy. Okay, now before I proceed to the answer, let us have a brief discussion or a brief explanation of what is the meaning of international trade, and a brief explanation of what is the significance or the role of international trade, especially on Indian economy. Okay, now first of all, what is the meaning of international trade? So international trade is nothing but, it means import and export of goods, you can say services also, so services between the countries. So if there is any trade happening between two countries across the boundaries of a particular country, then you say it is an international trade. So international trade, it is also called as foreign trade or external trade. Okay, now what is the significance of international trade? Let's check out what is the significance of international trade. So why a country should indulge in having the trade with other countries? Okay, so significance of international trade. So for example, some of the economies, mainly the classical economies and also the neoclassical economists, so they have given great importance to international trade. So an economist named Robertson. So Robertson, he mentioned that this is what he said: foreign trade is an engine of growth. So this is what he said. That means what? International trade is very important, that will pull the economy to on the growth path. See, for example, we all know that what is the formula for national income? National income is nothing but y plus, national income is equal to y, isn't it? National income is equal to y. I mean, national income is always represented by the alphabet y, which is equal to C plus I plus G plus X minus M. So what is C here? Consumption sector. So consumption plus investment plus government, and this one plus exports minus imports, isn't it? So this exports minus imports is the foreign sector. So you can see that this is occupying the first position, X minus M, the foreign sector. So if this foreign sector increases, it will pull all these other sectors along with it. That is the nature of that foreign sector. Compared to, see, national income of a country can be obtained or increased by increasing the any one of these components. either the investment expenditure in the country should increase, consumption expenditure in the country should increase, or the government expenditure of the country can increase, or the foreign trade sector expenditure of the country can also increase. So if any of these expenditures of the country increases, automatically the national, that is the national income of the country, will also increase. But the nature of that foreign trade sector is that if this particular sector increases, then it will have a multiplier effect. That is the nature of this sector. Multiplier effect means the growth will be phenomenal. Okay, so it progresses in, it increases in geometrical progression. That is the nature of the foreign trade sector. So that is why it is regarded, foreign trade sector is an engine of economic growth. So that means what, if this particular sector increases, the expenditure or the activity of the foreign trade sector increases, then automatically the receipts as well as the expenditure of the foreign trade sector increases, then automatically it will pull all the other sectors of the economy, and ultimately the national income of the country will increase. So that is why the classical economies and the neoclassical economies, classical economies, all Adam Smith, all they are all J.S. Mill, they all come under the classical economy, the ancient economies. Neoclassical economy, the later batch of economy, Marshall, Pigou, they all come under the neoclassical economies. Okay, so they all regarded foreign trade as an engine of economic growth. So that is one of the brief mention of about the significance of the role or the role of international trade. Okay, and there was always a debate in the sense that some of the economists argued that international trade would benefit only the developed nations, not the developing or the underdeveloped nations. See what is happening here, the trade is happening between two countries. So one is the developed country and another one is the developing country. So the set of developing countries are having the trade relations with the another set of developed countries. So it was always argued that international trade would always benefit only the developed countries rather than the developing countries. But still it is proved that even though it is mostly benefiting only the developed nations, the underdeveloped countries or the developing countries would benefit a lot. Their progress of development will be more if they are participating in international trade rather than not participating in the international trade. So that is why finally concluded that international trade is beneficial for almost all the countries which are participating in the international trade. Okay, so none of the economies are closed economies as of now. Most of the economies are open economy, meaning that most of the countries are having the foreign trade relations with the other countries. Okay, so now let us move on. What are all the benefits or the role of international trade, and we will connect it with the what are the benefits for the Indian economy. Okay, now so what are all the role of international trade on Indian economy. I'll just briefly mention about those important points, and then we will move on to the real answer. Okay, so the first advantage, it is benefits or advantage. That's what we mean by role of international trade. Okay, so the first advantage is something called as comparative cost advantage. So this was mostly given by David Ricardo. He propagated the comparative cost theory. So the comparative cost advantage means, see why the trade is happening. So the trade happens between two countries because the reason is because one country is having the advantage of producing certain commodities at a lesser price or at a lesser cost than the other countries. So if one country is having the advantage of producing certain commodities at a lesser price than the other country, then the trade will happen between the two countries. Now let us take an example. So example, let us take two countries. India and okay, let me assume Bangladesh. Okay, now let me move on to the next page. So now we are taking two countries, India and Bangladesh. Okay, so now with whatever the available resources, in these two respective countries, that is India and Bangladesh, respective countries. So first one, India can produce either 2 units of cotton or 1 unit of wheat. That means whatever the resources available in India, it is conducive for the production. India, with these available resources, India can produce both cotton as well as wheat. But the resources, as per this example, the resources are more favorable for the production of cotton than the production of wheat. That's why if the same resources are utilized for the production of cotton, we can produce 2 units of cotton. But if the same resources are utilized for the production of wheat, we can get only 1 unit of wheat. So alternatively, if you take Bangladesh, with whatever the resources available in Bangladesh, let us assume Bangladesh can produce again either 1 unit of cotton or 2 units of wheat. Understood? So with whatever the resources India is having, India can produce either 2 units of cotton or 1 unit of wheat. In the same way, Bangladesh, if it's utilizing the resources properly, Bangladesh can produce either 1 unit of cotton or 2 units of wheat. So now what is happening here? So in this case, both India and Bangladesh can benefit. Okay, so that means for India, 2 units of cotton is equal to 1 unit of wheat, and for Bangladesh, 1 unit of cotton is equal to 2 units of wheat. So now both India and Bangladesh can benefit. So what India can do? India can export 1 unit of cotton and in turn import 2 units of wheat. Alternatively, Bangladesh can also export 1 unit of wheat and import 2 units of cotton from India. So in other words, India can continuously specialize in the production of cotton and Bangladesh can continuously specialize in the production of wheat. So the resources will be utilized properly in both the countries and they can exchange. So both the countries will get the output at a lesser price. So this is how this is the meaning of comparative cost advantage. So with the available resources, if any country is producing and specializing in the production of any one particular commodity, then the cost of the particular commodity will reduce. So all the countries will be producing only those commodities which it can produce at a lesser price. So all the countries can benefit out of that, and they can export the commodity at a cheaper rate and import those commodities at which they have to produce at a higher rate. So because of this, what is happening? All the countries are producing only those goods which are having a lesser price. So ultimately, every country would specialize in the production, and there will not be, so what is the main advantage here? There will not be no wastage of resources. There will not be any wastage of resources in each and every country. Because see, if India is producing 1 unit of wheat instead of 2 units of cotton, then India is wasting the resources. Why? Because the country's resources are more favorable for the production of cotton instead of wheat. So under those circumstances, if India is producing wheat instead of cotton, then India will be wasting the resources. But if India is producing only cotton, then India is not wasting the resources. Similarly, all the other countries, they will be producing only those goods for which their resources are having the advantage. Okay, so there will not be any wastages of resources, and also all the consumers of the world, they will be getting all the commodity, different varieties of commodities at different varieties of goods or commodities at lesser price. Because every country is specializing in the production of only those goods in which they are having the comparative cost advantage. So the cost is reduced, so ultimately the price of the commodity will also be reduced, and each and every consumer all over the world, they will be getting different varieties of commodities at a lesser price. Okay, so that is the first importance, comparative cost advantage. Okay, now next, the second one is the second advantage of international trade is there is something called as the market expansion. So the market expansion in the sense that market expansion means expansion of demand. Expansion of demand. So now what is happening in the underdeveloped countries? See, underdeveloped or the developing countries, they are having the problem of low per capita income, isn't it? So because of this low per capita income, there is low demand. So low demand within the country, or let me put it as low domestic demand. Okay, so because of the low per capita income, the domestic demand for their commodities are very low, and so that leads to low or limited market. So the main problem is because of the low per capita income in all these underdeveloped countries. So if international trade happens, so if there is international trade, what is happening? If there is international trade in these countries, then automatically the demand will increase. So the demand will, international trade increases the demand, isn't it? Because more and more people from all over the world, they will be demanding the commodity. So this will increase the demand, which will expand the market. So when the market expands, that means what? If the demand increases, what will happen? Demand is increasing. So if the demand increases, the supply also has to increase, isn't it? So if the supply has to increase, then the production has to increase. So if the production increases, one of the main advantage of the increase in production is that will lead to decline in average cost of production. So mass production, cost of production will keep on decreasing. So this will lead to decline in average cost of production. So if the average cost of production declines, then automatically this will lead to low prices. Understood? So what is the second advantage? Market expansion, or in other words, the expansion of demand. So the main problem in underdeveloped or the developing countries is they are facing the problem of low per capita income. The people are unable to increase the demand because they are facing the limited market, because the people cannot afford to purchase the good because of the low per capita income. So if the country is depending only on the domestic sales, the domestic demand is very less, so they were having a limited market, so they will not be able to sell the commodities, so the production will also be low, the average cost will be more. If the production is low, average cost will be more. If the production is huge, the average cost will keep on reducing. But if they participate in international trade, automatically it increases the demand, because people from all over the world, they will be demanding the particular commodity. They need not have, the producers, they need not have to depend upon only the domestic demand. They can meet the demand of all the international buyers or the consumers. So if the demand increases, which will expand, they will face the expansion of market. So if there is an expansion of market, that means if the demand for the commodity increases, the supply has to increase. In order to increase the supply, the production levels in the country has to increase. There should be mass production. So if there is a mass production, if the production in the country increases, that will lead to a decline in the average cost of production. So if there is a decline in the average cost of production, automatically the price of the commodity will keep on reducing. So again, coming to the same conclusion, that people will get the different varieties of commodities at a lesser price, and also the domestic producers, they will be able to cater to the needs of the huge demand. Their production levels will also increase, and they will be able to get more and more amount of revenue. Okay, so that is the second advantage. Okay, then the third one is the agricultural development. So agricultural development, these are all countries, especially like India. So India is an agricultural country, isn't it? We all know that India is an agricultural country. So see, if China and Japan, they are all special, they can export all the electronic items because they are known for that, isn't it? So they are specialized in that. But if you want to say that in what are the commodities India is specialized, so immediately what comes to our mind, one is our handicrafts. So I'm just mentioning, so handicrafts, agricultural commodities. So India is famous for her spices, tea, fruits like mango, rice, isn't it? There are certain commodities India is famous for, isn't it? Handicrafts, agricultural commodities. So in all these commodities, India is famous for. So if there is international trade, then people all over the world will know that India is famous for handicrafts. India is famous for certain agricultural commodities. So people from all over the world will start buying these kind of products from India, because we have carved a niche in the world market. So all over the world, people will know that India is famous for certain agricultural commodities. India is famous for certain kind of handicrafts, isn't it? So, and being the agricultural country, if see, one thing about the agricultural commodities is they are all perishable. So if the domestic demand is less, then all the extra production will go waste. But if the same thing, if India is able to export to the foreign countries, so we will be able to get more and more amount of export revenue, and our agricultural production commodities will not go waste, and also the farmers will also be benefited because of the increase in the revenue. Okay, so from through the agricultural production, whatever the commodities which we are sending from the agricultural sector, whatever the agricultural commodities which we are exporting to the foreign sector, through that revenue, through that export revenue, we will be able to import all the other necessary commodities. Okay, so our agricultural automatically the demand for agricultural products will increase, and also the agricultural development will take place, which will lead to the further development of all the other sectors in the country. Remember, engine of economic growth. Okay. Then the next one is the competition. So competition, see, if there is no international trade, so if there is no international trade, all the domestic consumers, so what they will do, the domestic consumers have to depend upon only the local sellers, isn't it? So local sellers, this will create a monopoly. This will create a monopoly, because the local seller, he will know that the domestic consumers, they have to purchase only from him. Okay, him or her. So sellers or seller. Okay, and this will create a monopoly. People cannot demand any other, people cannot purchase the goods from any other source. So if there is international trade, this will lead to competition. So the same local seller will have to face competition from the sellers all over the world if there is international trade, isn't it? So what will happen, if there is a monopoly, then automatically the price will be high. He charges a very high price. So if he knows that, if the local seller knows that he is not, the consumers, the domestic consumers can get commodities at a lesser rate from other countries. If the country is importing the same commodities from the other countries at a lesser rate, then he cannot charge this higher price. So in that way, indirectly, the international trade will check the emergence of monopolies in the domestic market. Okay. So he also has to reduce the price, and the consumers will also get different varieties of goods from all the other countries from at a lesser price if there is international trade. Okay. Then next one is the trade policy. So the trade policy, basically India was having there is something called restrictive trade policy. Restrictive trade policy. So India was practicing this restrictive trade policy during 1950s to 1980s. Restrictive trade policy in the sense the trade is restricted. In what are all the ways the trades are restricted? One is through quotas. Okay, and this is the non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers or tariff barriers. So tariff barriers is nothing but by charging high import and export duties. So by charging high import and export duties, India was following this restrictive trade policy. That means what? India was not allowing free import and export of goods and services from the other countries between 1950s to 1980s. Okay, but in 1990s, that economic reforms were introduced, the LPG reforms, liberalization, privatization and globalization. After the announcement of LPG reforms in 1990s, from the restrictive trade policy, we have moved on to the liberalized trade policy. That means whatever all the quota restrictions, all these quota barriers, non-quota barriers, all these restrictions were removed from the country. Now there is more liberal movement of goods and services from one country from India to another country. So because of all these reasons, India was able to export so many commodities like engineering goods. Earlier we were depending solely on agricultural commodities. We were not exporting all these kind of commodities. now we were able to export different varieties of engineering goods, leather products, textiles, chemicals, so many different varieties of commodities we were able to trade between the other countries. Okay, so this is because we moved on from the restrictive trade policy to liberalized trade policy by removing all the quota and tariff and non-tariff barriers. Okay, and the last advantage is the foreign capital. So foreign capital, say international trade, because of the international trade we get two kinds of gains. Two kinds of gains due to international trade. Any country will get two kinds of gains due to international trade. One is the static gains. So static gains is nothing but continuously import and export of goods and services. Import and export of goods and services. See, whatever the commodities we are specializing. See, for example, I said agricultural commodities. So continuously we keep on exporting the agricultural commodities, and continuously we keep on importing all the machineries and other items. So this is a static gains. Continuously you keep on exporting certain commodities, continuously you keep on importing from certain countries regularly. So that is a static gain. Because of this static gain, because of this continuous trade relation between the two countries, a country will also gain additional, that is called the dynamic gains. So dynamic gains, see for example, since India is, let us assume India is having a continuous trade relation with Japan. Continuously India is sending cotton to Japan. Cotton is very costly in Japan. So India is, let us assume, continuously India is exporting cotton to Japan, and continuously India is importing all the electronics and machineries from Japan. This is because trade relations between India and Japan. So over a period of time, what Japan will do? Japan will start investing in our country, isn't it? So over a period, because of this continuous trade relation, Japan will start investing, so that will lead to foreign capital. In other words, if India is having continuous trade relations with any one particular country or different countries, over a period of time, those countries will start helping financially. In other words, they will give in the form of loan, or we can obtain in the form of foreign loans, or we can obtain in the form of foreign investment. So all this will happen one day if there is a continuous trade relations between the two countries. Okay, so in the same way, India was also able to acquire foreign capital because of the continuous trade relations. And on the top of it, India, after the liberalization policy announced in 1990, opened up the foreign investment in the country. Okay, so as I mentioned previously, till 1980s or till late 1980s, India was having the restrictive trade policy, in the sense that India was not allowing even the foreign capital also not more than 49%. Okay, so at the most in the Indian companies, only 49% should be the foreign capital. But after that liberalization was announced, India was allowing 74%, even 100% in certain countries. So that means for the foreign capital till late 1980s, India was allowing only 49% foreign investment in domestic firms. So this is because then only the Indian producer will have the major voice. For that reason, 51% should be with the domestic producer. Only the 49% should be allowed for the foreign capital. But what happened? But after 1990s LPG economic reforms, after this announcement of this economic reforms, India started allowing some of the firms even 74% foreign investment, and in some sectors even like defense manufacturing and all, we are allowing defense manufacturing, telecom, we are allowing even 100% foreign investment. In some sector even 100% foreign investment. Okay, so because of this, what is happening, we are able to get the supplementary in capital, foreign capital. So we need not have to depend only purely only the domestic capital. So we can get the foreign capital also, and for along with the foreign capital we are able to get even the foreign technology. Okay, now these are all the major advantages or the role of international trade on the Indian economy. Now let's moving on to the main answer. So assess the role of international trade on Indian economy. It's a very important 5 marks question asked in the board exam in the under the unit 8 foreign sector. Okay, so international trade plays a vital role in the economic development. As I mentioned, the classical and the neoclassical economists regarded international trade as an engine of economic growth. So what are all the various advantages or the role of international trade on Indian economy? So the first is comparative cost advantage. So foreign trade benefits those countries which are able to produce certain commodities at a cheaper cost than others. So it will increase the international demand and also will lead to the availability of goods at a lower price. India also specialized and gained from the production of those commodities in which it has comparative advantage, cost advantage. Okay. So second one, market expansion. In underdeveloped countries, domestic demand is less due to what is the reason? Low per capita income. So what happens? Foreign trade increases the demand. So if the demand increases, thereby expand the market for their goods. So this will reduce the average cost, which leads to a decline in their prices. As a result, consumers will get different varieties of goods both in quantitative as well as qualitative terms. So they will get huge varieties of goods with better quality, and because of the so many sellers are selling from different countries, the quantity will also be more. And third one, agricultural development. India is an agricultural country. Agriculture is the backbone of our economy. The country and the farmers benefited greatly out of the exports of agricultural goods such as rice, cotton, fruits and vegetables. Every year we keep on sending these kind of commodities to other countries. Fourth one, competition. International trade checks the formation of local monopolies. This is because of the availability of cheap imports of different varieties of goods. A local seller has to face tough competition from the other international sellers. So he cannot be a monopolist. He has to decrease his own price. Fifth one, trade policy. Even though trade and commerce have been the backbone of the Indian economy right from the ancient time, that's why during those times and our handicrafts were very famous. From 1950s to the late 1980s, India followed a restrictive trade policy. See, this is because after the independence, India didn't want to have the very free trade because India was very cautious. So that's why we followed the restrictive trade policy from 1950s to the late 1980s. However, since 1990s, the trade reforms were introduced through adoption of LPG policy, that is from restrictive trade policy to liberalized trade policy. As a result, India is able to export different varieties of goods such as engineering goods, textiles, precious stones, petroleum products, sugar, chemicals, etc., including services. Okay. The last one, foreign capital. As part of economic reforms, India allowed the MNCs, the multinational companies, to have a higher stake of foreign investment in Indian companies. 74% in core sectors such as power and fuel. Core sectors, the main which require huge amount of investment. Electrical equipments, transport, etc. And even 100% stake in some firms like mining, defense, manufacturing, telecom, services, etc. Okay, so these are all the advantages or the role of international trade on Indian economy. So this is one of the frequently asked 5 marks question in the board exam. Okay, hope you have understood all these concepts clearly. Okay, if you find this video useful, please like, share and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Okay, and very soon I will be uploading chapter wise all the 2 marks answers also. Okay, and in that itself I will be mentioning which are all the highlighting, which are all the important questions in the sense that the last couple of years, which are all the 2 marks questions which are frequently asked in the board exam. So along with the chapter wise all the 2 marks answers I will be uploading, highlighting which are all the frequently asked 2 mark questions in the board exam. So if you go to my playlist, you will find all those 2 marks. But so far I have uploaded only the questions of 10 marks and 5 marks. Very soon I will be uploading also the 2 marks questions along with the answers. So please subscribe to my channel. You go